Hi, my name's Michael, and today I'm going to do a little bit more on my Russian Lit project, and I'm going to be talking about The Young Doctor's Notebook by Mikhail Bulgakov, and this was translated by Hugh Aplin, and he's one of my favourite Russian translators, and if I ever find books by him, I normally pick them up straight away, and he's translated a lot of Bulgakov's books, and a few of Dostoevsky's short stories, so you may see a lot of those books near the start of this project, but that's just a translator that I'm enjoying at the moment, so I'm kind of drawn to his books. Now, A Young Doctor's Notebook, or sometimes known as A Country Doctor's Notebook, is a collection of short stories, and it is heavily influenced by Bulgakov's own life, so I might want to have a quick look at his life before talking about this book. Bulgakov was born in Kiev, which was part of the Russian Empire at the time, but we now know it as Ukraine. After finishing school, he went to medical school at the Kiev University, where he trained as a physician, but he wasn't that interested in medicine. He was more interested in plays and writing, and a girl he met at school, her name was Tatiana Lapa, and he went on to marry her, and she became his first wife. But then World War One broke out, so he went on to volunteer with the Red Cross as a medical doctor, and he was sent to the front where he was badly injured at least twice and developed chronic stomach pains due to these injuries. After the war, he got his certificate as a doctor. He was sent off to be a doctor in the Smolensk province. Here at this country hospital, he was the only doctor there, and he had to perform procedures that he's probably only seen once or twice when training, and he had no real support, so it was a struggle. Having said that, this is basically where the stories from The Young Doctor's Notebook comes into play. A lot of these are based on experiences he's had, and it's really a collection of comedy situations which he sent to a medical journal about patients that he had at this hospital, and just the attitude people had towards him as a doctor and the idea of medical treatment. There was a huge issue with syphilis in the area, and people would come in for tablets or just a quick fix, expecting him to be able to provide that for them. It really demonstrated just the way people react to doctors. Even in today's society, we want to go to a doctor and expect to get a prescription or maybe an injection that will magically heal us and we'll be back restored. But like people in this book, we often leave wounds or illnesses untreated for so long, and all these stories have a bit of humour to them, but they were just his experience, and it was a good way for him to practice his writing and talk about what was going on. He was a doctor at this hospital between 1916 and 1918, and this was basically a time where the Russian Civil War broke out. There was a couple of revolutions starting, and Bulgakov was a supporter of the Tsar, and he thought the Bolsheviks were there to cause trouble, and when they came to power, he was a little bitter towards that. That kind of does come through in the book a little bit, and it did cause a bit of problems trying to get this published. And most of his books, in fact, I believe The Young Doctor's Notebook was written in the time when he was in hospital, but it wasn't until 1975 before it was published. There is another story in my edition of this book, and it's not in all editions of The Young Doctor's Notebook, but it seems to be commonly placed with it. And that's a story called Morphine, which talks about his own experiences with a morphine addiction, the chronic pains that he received from World War One, and the easy access to morphine. It started a really bad morphine addiction for him, and during his time at the hospital, he often asked his wife to help him hide the morphine addiction, but it got worse and worse, and eventually he had to abandon the use of morphine and practicing as a doctor, then went on to pursue his own dreams of writing. But that morphine story is a really powerful story. It was also published in a medical journal. It's a really effective story, just that kind of addiction and how devastating it was for him. Now, the Young Doctor's Notebook was also made into a TV miniseries. I believe there was 2 seasons, and it told the story of a young doctor who was played by Daniel Radcliffe, who grew up to be a taller American doctor who was played by John Hamm, which is probably the weirdest thing to see, that growth spurt and that accent change. Really reflects that dark comedy of this book, and they are both fans of Bulgakov's works. There is a lot of similarities to the TV adaptation to the book, but there is one big difference, and that is the young doctor and the old doctor kind of playing off each other and really dealing with forgiveness and trying to move on from your past. But everything else was very similar. The morphine addiction, obviously from his own personal experience with the short story Morphine, which they added into the 7 stories that actually appear in the Young Doctor's Notebook. They do add a bit to make the comedy a bit more relevant to today and maybe a little darker, but it really does reflect what Bulgakov was trying to say. But it does a bit more with exploring the morphine addiction and the way the Doctor tries to forgive himself for his past mistakes, which was a powerful image. And I highly recommend you watching the TV show, even if you don't plan to read the book. It's definitely a good way to experience Bulgakov's works in an easy, accessible way. And I binge watched that show over a weekend and then went on to read the book afterwards because I needed more. And I really enjoyed both of them. I thought they complemented each other really well. Well, that's it for me. I know it's a quick review, but it's a short collection of stories, and I do find it hard to review short story collections. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you go on to read some of Bulgakov's works. Obviously, The Master and Margarita being his best and more known piece of literature, but this is definitely one worth checking out as well. If you want to talk to me some more, do so in the comments, or you can find me on Twitter or Goodreads, and all my social media links are in the description below. Thank you for watching.